What do you think would happen if on any given day you simply left? I'm not talking about physically disappearing, but about disconnecting, letting go of those invisible bonds that tie you to others. Imagine deciding to step away not because of hatred or anger, but simply because you feel an intense need to be alone with yourself. Many of us live entwined in relationships and expectations that over time transform into unspoken dependencies. Today, I invite you to explore the consequences of that deliberate act of stepping away, a decision that ripples out and challenges the very fabric of our interpersonal lives. Before we dive into the emotional and psychological impact of such a decision, there is an essential question to address. When we think of relationships and the roles we play in them, we are rarely interacting with people as they truly are. Instead, we are engaging with our own internal constructs. To understand this phenomenon in depth, we first need to clarify two key terms from Carl Jung's groundbreaking work, the Anima and the Animus. Carl Jung introduced the concepts of Anima and Animus to describe the inner dimensions of our psyche that are gender opposite to our outward identity. In essence, the Anima is the feminine element residing in the unconscious mind of men, while the Animus is the masculine element found in the unconscious of women. But these ideas extend far beyond simple notions of gender. They serve as archetypal images, universal symbols embedded in the collective unconscious that influence our dreams, our creative expressions, and the way we relate emotionally to others. Consider the Anima not just as a feminine quality, but as an embodiment of intuition, empathy, creativity, and even mystery, the aspects that counterbalance the rational and analytical mind. In men, this inner feminine presence offers a portal to understanding emotions that are often left unexplored, while the Animus in women represents not only assertiveness and logic, but also the capacity for vision, exploration, and the drive for achievement. In every relationship, these archetypal forces come into play. We project them onto those around us, expecting our partners, friends, or even colleagues to serve as vessels for these idealized qualities, a process that is usually unconscious. What does this mean? When you interact with someone, you might not be seeing them for who they truly are, but rather what you need them to be. They become a mirror, reflecting back your hidden desires, fears, and longings. And this mirror is delicate. When you decide to step away from these relationships, you don't merely create an absence, you shatter that mirror entirely. Now, let's explore that shattering in more detail. Picture the promises you've often heard, that you are indispensable, that without you, others would fall apart. It's important to reflect on these assurances. They rarely celebrate you as an individual, but rather, they acknowledge the role you play in supporting a carefully constructed emotional edifice. Your presence validates a narrative that others have built over years, a narrative grounded in both a conscious and unconscious need for perfection. However, when you step away, you force these individuals to confront the possibility that what they cherished might have been a projection, a reflection of their own inner constructs and the archetypes they have silently clung to. This confrontation is not gentle. When you leave, you create a void, an empty space where the familiar used to be. And it isn't just any void. It is one that unmasks the emotions people have suppressed. They are not mourning what you were in their lives, but rather the ideal they projected onto you. This ideal was not something you consciously curated. It was a creation of their inner world, a blend of their anima or animus that they believed you embodied perfectly. Now let's consider a deeper question. What do they actually feel when you're no longer there? At first, there might be a rush of denial. They convince themselves that your absence is temporary, that the gap will quickly be filled. But as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, that denial fades, replaced by a more profound disquiet. The absence evolves from a mere gap to a symbol of something deeper, a painful reminder that they never truly knew you beyond the projection. In that emotional vacuum, a myriad of reactions emerge. For some, the void produces a sense of anger and confusion. They might feel betrayed, not because you abandoned them for selfish reasons, but because your leaving forces them to confront the reality that the person they depended on was, in many ways, a reflection of their own inner complexities. For others, the pain becomes a quiet, persistent ache, a guilt that seeps into the corners of their thoughts as they begin to question whether they ever truly valued you for who you were. And then there is the fear. Fear of facing oneself, of unmasking the parts of the psyche that have long been hidden away under layers of projections. To truly understand the impact of your absence, it is imperative to examine the dynamics of projection that Jung described. When you are present, you unwittingly serve as a living canvas for others to project their unfinished business, the desires, the frustrations, the wounds they dare not acknowledge in themselves. The Anima and Animus are at work here. They compel us to fill in the gaps of our own understanding with qualities we believe are embodied in the other person. But what happens when you remove that canvas? The projections have nowhere to settle, and instead they begin to crumble, exposing the raw, unedited emotions of the individuals involved. This collapse of the projected image forces a reckoning. The person who once saw you as a perfect embodiment of their inner ideal must now confront the truth that they relied not on your authentic self, but on a carefully constructed fantasy. And that realization is both painful and enlightening. It is painful because it reveals the fragility of the bonds that had once provided comfort, and it is enlightening because it opens the door to genuine self-discovery. Let's expand on this concept by considering the process of individuation, a cornerstone of Jungian thought. Individuation is the journey of becoming one's true self, a process that involves integrating all aspects of the psyche, including those that have been disowned or suppressed. When you choose to step away from relationships defined by projection, you are engaging in an act of individuation. You are reclaiming your identity from the expectations and fantasies imposed upon you by others. In doing so, you not only liberate yourself, but also compel those left behind to start their own journeys toward individuation. They must learn to differentiate between the illusion of the projection and the reality of their inner being. This transformation is not an instantaneous cure-all. The emotional upheaval is profound, and the path toward rediscovering oneself can be fraught with resistance. When someone is forced to see themselves without the comforting illusion of an external mirror, they may initially respond with hostility or retreat further into denial. It is a trial by fire, a necessary albeit painful process that paves the way for deeper self-awareness. Consider, for example, the common phrases we hear in our daily lives. "You are my rock," or "I can't imagine my life without you." These expressions are less about the person they address and more about the speaker's need for stability. When you remove that stable presence, these individuals must face the unsettling possibility that much of what they valued was simply a crutch, a symbol of security rather than a reflection of true intimacy. And this can spark an internal inquiry. Who am I if I am not anchored by this external support? In that inquiry, an internal transformation begins. As the days pass following your departure, the narrative around you starts to evolve. Some will retroactively idealize you, constructing an even more elaborate image of who you once were and what your absence signifies. This can be seen as an attempt to preserve the comfort of what they once knew, a way to rationalize the void by inflating it with myth. Others might respond by devaluing you, insisting that your leaving was an act of abandonment or selfishness. Either way, the narratives are less about you and more about what others need to believe to maintain their sense of self. It is crucial here to understand that neither extreme reflects your true nature. Rather, they are manifestations of the inner work that has taken place within them. Work that has, until now, remained hidden under the guise of everyday interactions. By stepping away, you trigger a slow, inevitable process of deconstruction. The carefully maintained facade that they had built begins to crumble, exposing a truth that is both uncomfortable and, ultimately, liberating. That truth is that the relationships we form are often less about authentic connection and more about maintaining a delicate balance of projections. The Anima and Animus, as archetypal forces, encourage us to seek completeness in others. They whisper the notion that we are not whole on our own, and that the missing piece of our identity lies in someone else. Yet this very idea sets us on a path of perpetual dependence, where the real challenge is not to find someone else, but to find the strength and courage to embrace the fragmented self. When you step away, you disrupt this cycle. You allow the projections to fall away, revealing what remains behind the veneer of the idealized other. For those who depended on your presence, this revelation is like a mirror suddenly shattering into 1,000 pieces, each fragment reflecting a part of the self they had long ignored. And in that moment of crisis lies the possibility of a profound transformation. Freed from the need to uphold an illusion, they can begin to address the unresolved parts of their identity, what it means to truly be alone and complete in their own right. Now let us consider the broader implications of this process. Your act of stepping away is not merely a personal choice. It is a catalyst for change. It forces a re-examination of the roles we play in our lives and the narratives we construct about ourselves. In doing so, it challenges the very foundations of our interpersonal relationships. When we come to see that our connections have been based on projections rather than genuine understanding, the door opens for authenticity. This authenticity, however, comes at a cost. For both you and those you leave behind, the journey towards self-discovery can be lonely and fraught with uncertainty. The absence of familiar projections reveals the raw, unfiltered self, complete with imperfections, vulnerabilities, and untapped potential. It is a realization that can be as liberating as it is daunting. Yet, if you allow yourself and others the space to confront this truth, the result may be nothing short of transformative. In that transformational space, you begin to see that true independence is not about isolation, but about reclaiming your individuality. The process of individuation, integrating the shadow, acknowledging the anima or animus, paves the way for a richer, more authentic existence. You learn that the parts of you once suppressed or denied are not liabilities to be hidden away, but integral elements of a complete, evolving self. I invite you now to reflect on your own relationships. Have you ever depended on someone not for who they truly were, but for the idealized image they represented, a mirror for your own unacknowledged desires or fears? And when that image starts to fade, what remains? Often what remains is a painful yet necessary confrontation with your own inner landscape, a journey towards discovering who you truly are when the projections fall away. Embrace this paradox. The act of stepping away may seem like an abandonment, yet it is simultaneously an invitation for growth, a call to dismantle the illusions that have defined your relationships and replace them with a deeper, more genuine connection to yourself. In that space, you may come to realize that the void left behind by your absence is not a mark of failure, but rather a space of freedom, a blank canvas upon which new truths can be painted. Remember the simple, yet profound mantra: the void doesn't define me, it frees me. Let this serve as a reminder that while your departure may unsettle those who have built their sense of self on your presence, it also liberates you from the confines of expectations and projections that have long limited your true potential. Now consider this final thought. Your decision to step away is an act of immense courage, a willingness to face the unknown, both in yourself and in others. It is the beginning of a journey toward authenticity, where you reclaim the parts of your psyche that have been obscured by the demands of projection and expectation. It is an opportunity to redefine your identity on your own terms, independent of the roles others have imposed upon you. Finally, I encourage you to contemplate these ideas deeply, share your thoughts in the comments, and if the message resonates with you, embrace the transformative power of stepping away in order to rediscover your true self. Engage with this paradox, question what you see, and allow yourself the freedom to become whole.